There's no substitute for doing the hard things. And what I mean is nose to the grindstone, a lot of details.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Test, Optimize, and Scale. You're going to enjoy today's discussion with Clint Brauer, founder, head of innovation for Greenfield Robotics. Greenfield Robotics is a very successful Reg CF issuer. 7 figures raised on a campaign earlier this year, new campaign live on Start Engine. We're going to be talking about AI. We're going to be talking about agriculture. We're going to be talking about chemicals and where the whole field, the whole space is going. Clint, thanks for taking the time to join the podcast and have a discussion with me here today.
Man, super happy to be here. Thanks for having me. It's good stuff.
Of course. Now, you've been getting a lot of attention from the audience. Publishers are talking about you guys, Wall Street Journal, Fast Company, Forbes, a lot of recognition. I know you got big backers, Chipotle, all these different groups have invested in with you guys on top of retail, on top of the farmers that you're flying out to meet with on a daily basis. But where did it all begin for you? What is your background and how did you come about founding Greenfield Robotics?
Yeah, tell you what, man, there's journeys and then there's journeys. And, I graduated college, went to LA, got on the internet in 1997, did tech for 13 years. And about the time that was starting to hit some peak earning, I said, no. My dad got Parkinson's. I ended up back in Kansas, went through divorce, and because of my dad Parkinson's, I said I'm going to go back home. And so after about a year, I said, okay, I'm going to try to get rid of chemicals out of farming because I came to believe that it came from farm chemicals, herbicides in particular. So herbicides are what you spray on a weed to get rid of it, kill it. Okay, so that's how it started, and so I thought, well, what I'll do is start growing organically for the Wichita market. And so I'm just west of Wichita, Kansas, our farm. And so if you're watching the video, you can see sort of where the equipment used to be, and now it's a bunch of robots. So I started growing, and look, I went from a successful tech career to being out in 100-degree heat, 60 days out of the summer. My first 2 years, setting all sorts of heat records. I was growing, I don't know how many tomato plants. Let's call it 1,000, and then creating distribution for that. And I've always outworked most people around me in LA, and this was like much harder. and then also trying to figure out how to do it without anything dangerous. And so organically, we'll call it. And so hell of a learning curve. And so I did that for 10 years, growing vegetables, mostly myself. I had people that helped, created one thing is, we were in 25 grocery stores, 35 restaurants at one point, set up hydroponic facility with my cousin. We did greenhouses here that are still standing. And once in a while I grow stuff in the winter there. And I wish I had more time to grow things, but that's the irony of this whole deal. and then started growing sheep and got into something, I figured out I didn't want to till the ground. Some friends of mine called me who are on the other side of this from the chemical and that, but they said, look, this thing called no-till farming, which is fundamental now to what we call regenerative farming. There's a lot of good things about it, Clint, and you're being bullheaded, and you need to listen to us. If you can get rid of the chemicals, then there's no downside. And they didn't really phrase it exactly like that, but I said, okay. So I started digging into it, and I saw the positive of what's called no-till farming. The problem is no-till farming and chemicals are synonymous. There's really no way. And so I tried some techniques that are out there that are not widespread for a reason. And I learned very quickly why. But it certainly is a better way to farm. And so it's sort of the fundamental concept of regenerative ag is limiting, if not all outright eliminating, hence no-till farming. And tilling, we mean you're tearing the ground up, right? And it's like taking a wrecking ball through your house. How do you think harmony in the house is going to go? And so anyways, we can get more into it.
I've done renovation. I know what you're talking about. I've experienced that. I pictured out on the field.
I've rebuilt this entire farm. It's a nightmare. So anyways, realized something else is needed. And so Greenfield, I saw a problem that everyone had, whether they agreed with me on chemicals or not, which is cut weeds between rows. And we started doing that commercially about 4 years ago. and small scale at that point. Now been scaling the last few years, getting better every year. So that's how we started. That's how we got here. And so recruited a team, and most of these people I worked with, or they worked with me, or I worked for them, or they worked for me. And so it's a pretty cracked team we have here.
So you talk about the chemical free aspects of weed control, as
Hmm.
well as tilling. And I know part of the precision uh, that Greenfield Robotics, the AI, is able to
Mm-hmm.
utilize has an impact on crop damage.
Yeah.
What's the importance of that for farmers? I know for the end consumer, it's, hey, chemical free. That sounds great. I could guess all of the different reasons that's a
Yeah.
good thing for
Yeah.
farmers. But then getting into the minimal crop damage, how was this first received by your clients on the B2B side?
Yeah, I mean, crop damage, there's a lot of different ways we can count it. And so the first way is all we said to customers early on was they knew how I felt about it, but I didn't sit there and hammer away around chemicals. I just said to us, when you go to deliver the chemicals, you run this massive spray rig. And when you run that massive spray rig, you're running over and destroying 2 to 4% of your crop. If we destroy 2% or more, we'll write you a check and we're going to get to 1%, right? And then I'm going to ask you someday after that about selling your spray rig. And so they all laughed. And so, but we got to 1% last year. And so that's number one, just flat out, we don't destroy as much crop as the big spray rig. Whether you like chemicals or not, don't matter.
Right.
And so that makes a difference. 1% per acre is I'm not going to say completely pays for us, but it makes a dent. And so the second thing you do is the average person would have no clue about this. But when you spray a herbicide on a genetically modified crop, because if it's not genetically modified, you're going to kill it, right? For the most part. And so when you do that, you do have a yield ding. Now, no one, to my knowledge, has completely quantified this, but every farmer kind of sees this now. And so there is a yield ding there. We don't have that problem. We're not using herbicides. There's a long-term downturn. Let's just say you get sick and you take antibiotic to heal with that, and you continue to take that for years. What happens? A lot of bad things are going to happen. Well,
Yes.
the herbicides suppress immune system function in the soil as well. In some cases, would be one example. And so long term, you lack resilience, right? And so you have a drought, you have a flood, your soil's not functioning properly, meaning the bacteria and the fungus and all those interactions are not working correctly. And you can't recover nearly as quickly as if you have a healthy microbiome, is what we call it. And so those three things right there are fundamental. So there's the immediate, there's the things you could we suspect are all happening, there's a long term. And then of course there's just, it costs less to run us anyway. So
Which makes it a no brainer. And that's why I was curious, because again, I
yeah,
know as a consumer, the word chemical pushes me away.
yeah,
You were inspired, you were driven into action with your story and seeing a connection to Parkinson's and saying, "Hey, I'm taking action here." And like
yeah,
you said, not just for us as people, but for the plants, what herbicides do, the yields, but just hearing the percentages, just learning, hey, I don't necessarily have to be at the forefront of tech, but if I understand what this is going to mean for my bottom line and I start incorporating it and makes a difference for my customers as a farmer and what I'm doing with my team, it just makes all the sense in the world to move forward on. That's probably why you guys are getting such a strong response.
yeah, that's right. And really the only downside of this is with farmers is if you think about farming in most cases outdoors, your go time is for middle of April, depending on where you're at. Let's call it middle April at the earliest, maybe March. You guys are kind of extreme. And until October, November. And you really get rolling. And there are times that you're just going crazy. And it would be like having a normal job that you cram it into 5 months a year, 5 or 6 months a year, and the rest of the year you're kind of planning for that 5 or 6 crazy months. It's maybe like being a professional athlete in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
And so doesn't pay as well. But and it doesn't necessarily lead to fitness. But when you're working that hard. And so I think that is the thing I spend time thinking about is how do we help farmers? You can make all the financial arguments you want. If you get in the way and make their life a nightmare, then they're not going to deal with it for too long. And so I think that's one of the things you work through with them.
Talking about time, one of the things that stands out to me about Greenfield Robotics is the 24/7 aspect of using robots, using AI, along with the precision, hearing how specific you guys could get in terms of the grounds that are affected. I think it's a matter of a few centimeters. But
Yep.
It's something like 120 hours a week that you can get robots working on your behalf. And as a business owner, as a marketer, I'm reluctant to AI. I'm reluctant to automation unless I
Mm.
find it's better than human.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
quality is an important thing for everything that I touch in terms of marketing.
Yeah.
There's definitely a quantity aspect because I have to manage team hours and time and how we're hitting our deadlines and projects.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you could be a lot more productive with 120 hours versus, let's say, a standard traditional 40 hours during an April or March through October.
That's right. That's where we're going, right? Look, they're not there. No one's running 120 hours right now, simply because they got to swap batteries every so often. And
5, 6
so,
hours. Yeah.
yeah, and so that turns out to be a little bit much every 6 days a week. So, but we knew that, and we told the farmers that, and they know that, and so, but they can do it. They can run at night if you got in a jam. We've been running at night for a few years now. But where we're going is you don't have to mess with batteries. You don't have to fill it with water because we also foliar feed now besides weeding, especially next year, really getting rolling with that. And so if you look at these things, the idea is it fills itself up, it charges itself or swaps battery in that, and it's sort of out there and it's just sort of running.
Mhm.
I think the other thing is this, you know, you you live a lot in the digital world, and I used to live a lot in the digital world too.
Oh, yeah.
Um, so there is no like the thing breaks and now I've got to go get wrenches and all that in our world, right? It's all IT or throw it in the dumpster and buy a new one. And in this world, that's not an option. You don't throw away a machine that's worth this much. So what we've done is tried to echo in what I've seen in a lot of other things is any part can be swapped in 15 minutes. That's malfunctioning, and just one person can do it. And so you just have to be trained. And they're not complicated to work on. We try to lessen that, and we continue to get better every year.
Mhm.
And so that's the key too. Is you know if it's 8 o'clock at night and your computer stopped working, you're going to quit for the day. If it's not a quick fix, right?
Yeah.
And same with farmers, it's got to be a quick fix. And so that's sort of the journey to now is like quick fix, make it easier, break less, run more hours. It just keeps getting better, right? Get rid of any blue screen events, right? I don't know if you're old enough to remember the Windows 3.1, but we had this blue screen thing. And it
Of
was going
course.
great, right? Until you got the blue screen. And then you're like, well, I think I'm done for a while.
I was a kid, but I definitely recall waiting on that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So our blue screen events are fewer and far between, further between every year.
It's a good thing.
Yeah.
My uncle actually had a farm in Washington growing up, and I had to help him with some
What kind
broken
of
down
stuff?
equipment at times. Not commercial, but at the same
Yeah.
time, we were
Yeah.
needing to get something back up and running. I was helping him out while I was up there for a week at a time in the summer, and it was stressful. And
Did you? Yeah. Did you
yeah,
find the equipment to be intuitive? Because I didn't.
no,
I'm like, who came up with this?
there's a lot of let's see if this works.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
in terms of what we
Yeah.
were trying to fix up. The idea of being able to get back on the field 15, 20 minutes later, let's just say a short period of time, I imagine is a game changer for farmers as well, versus
Yeah.
having to take it into a shop, maybe wait days, weeks, which just equates to lost revenue.
Just frustration level. I mean, you
Yeah.
just, when you're that busy, like I described, and then your main way to create productivity is breaking, and now you're sucked into that. It's a real problem.
Mhm.
You know, and it's very high stress.
How difficult was it to build these relationships? Talking about things that are relatively new, robotics, AI,
Yeah.
farmers, venture capital groups. How are you able to start breaking through, building partnerships, building upon that? What do those conversations look like?
Well, I think it's sort of a continuum, right? And so how did we start? Well, we're one big advantage I had when I started this that not everyone has is we have a farm, right? And so we could go out, plant the crops, and watch it destroy my crop when it wasn't working, right? And so we did some of that, and then within I think it'd been a year or two, maybe a year or two or three, then went to childhood friend and said, "Can we run some of these on your fields just to see how your fields are different than mine?" Because as you grow up a farmer, you don't necessarily go see how that farmer's doing it and make sure you're not crazy, right? And so it turns out I'm not crazy, but and it is somewhat uh, prototypical what I've done versus what other farmers, but not completely. And so then you go to your friends and that's not too much different than if you're having a startup or crowdfunding when probably when you get started, kind of friends and family, kind of instrumental at the beginning of that, right? You
Absolutely.
don't walk up to a perfect stranger and go, "Hey, you just met me. Let me go see if I can wreck everything you got going." And so that was really key. And I had that background and the friends. And so that helped, and they were kind of enthusiastic to see, crazy Clint doing something new again. And so we did that. And then you start saying, okay, this is starting to work. Let's go get some cut people we didn't really know. And but we would spend the time to tell them, look, this probably isn't going to go very well at times. And here's what I think is going to happen. And so I spent a lot of time telling them how bad it was going to go. And you can't do that in every industry, but farmers are very okay with bad information, being negative up front. They would rather have that than the disaster in that. And so I think that's been a fundamental thing for us is what are we going to do? Things we're worried about. We're open book with them. Coming out of the end of the season, what was going wrong? What are we doing to address it? Even having those conversations as the season goes on. We're thinking about this. What do you think about that? And so we're still a small enough scale. We're having those types of deals. And frankly, we're never going to end that. We're talking about how do we continue this ongoing conversation with customers, which are farmers in this case. And so probably not too different than what you've done over all the time you've done in crowdfunding, the learning curve, having those discussions. And now you're building a mountain of information and experience, obviously, that we rely on at times from you as well. So,
Yeah. I mean, I can't tell you how many founders don't do it, especially in regards to crowdfunding, where
yeah,
they have this vision of what an investor is, and they
yeah,
don't have a close feedback loop. They're not testing it
yeah,
to individual investors. In some cases, they're not starting with their friends. They say, "Oh, we've exhausted those networks, looking for new people to go after here," which is great. Everyone is, but you want to
mm,
be able to have that foundation. And what I love about what you're saying is you're seeking it out and you're making the pivots based on what your friends telling you, based on what your
mhm.
customers, based on what your distributors, your partners are speaking with you about. You're physically taking the next steps based on that information, not just hearing it and going, "Huh, okay, well, interesting, there'll be other people we go after." That's how you're shaping the innovation.
And one of the great things about what we do is it's very self-evident. You can walk in a field. Did we do a good job or not? Did we run over a bunch of crop or not? And how much did we get done? And so that's very easy. I mean, that's one of the positive things. Whereas what you're talking about, hey, how do I find people to invest in this company? That's a little more science and art.
Mhm.
Sometimes to figure out why they're investing or not investing and who those folks are and why they're reacting the way they are, which is what I used to do before, not for crowdfunding, but I used to do, that type of stuff before
Mhm.
I moved back to Kansas. So which is a lot of fun, by the way.
Yeah, and digital definitely allows for more scale.
Yeah.
At the same time,
Yeah.
it can lack some of those meaningful insights. What you're reading into, both verbally
Yeah.
and non-verbally, in an in-person conversation with the farmer. We were even talking about in-person events and travel and how things have changed over the years on the
Yeah.
marketing side as a whole. When you're just looking at the digital analytics, there's a lot of things that you won't get from offline
Yeah.
conversation. Some of the fundamentals are missing. So being able to set up focus groups, being able to set up additional studies, really taking those insights into account and having enough data to work off of can go a long way. But digital allows for scale. So being able to take thousands of, let's say, crowdfunding, thousands of investors to an offering page on a daily basis and look
Right.
at the engagement rate all the way through each step of the checkout process, the conversion
That makes
rate, how many
sense.
people you're driving there, based on what you're paying for marketing cost per acquisition, return on advertising spend, marketing efficiency ratio. And you could find these pockets of performance and scale up what's working. When it's not producing, or even if it just gets stagnant, that's where you have to take those additional steps to really pivot,
Hmm.
make the right
Makes sense.
optimizations. But I enjoy the in-person feedback. I use that term of closed feedback loop. I think it makes all the difference. I can't tell you how many let's just say marketers I've spoken to that are going off assumption versus hard data, or even just polling, getting enough responses from the individual prospects they're going after. So it's great that that's how you guys have been able to engineer the robotics behind your product.
Yeah. And you're right. I mean, let me just create a really bad analogy on the fly here, and we might have to
Please.
race this out if it's as bad as it might be. But
I'm sure it'll be good.
look, the way our guidance system work is we have our own growing version of RTK GPS, highly precise, and what we say is it gets you close, but not close enough. And then we have
Mm.
other things that machine vision and mechanical feelers and that. I think it's the same thing. What you're describing is you have all this data, all these things, you have a pretty good information, you're in the ballpark, but to really understand sometimes what's going on, you got to have other methods and dive in there and call them and define that. And I used to do that with when we did heavy CRM stuff at Sony back in the day. You're
Yeah.
right. One conversation can tweak or completely change things at times.
Mm-hmm.
You never know where the good idea is going to come from, right? Or the
Yep.
insight.
And you can't be in an echo chamber. You need those
No.
outside responses. Who better than the target audience and customer base?
Yeah.
I met founders, engineers. I've given the example of some of the different CEOs and marketers, but who they're really set to their vision, but without getting that feedback in, who are you really designing it for? Is the way I like to look at it.
Yeah. I think you're right.
And
Yeah.
it's it's great to see that the industry has welcomed this as a whole. Like you said, 2 to 4% down to 1% makes perfect sense. The chemicals and what you're committed to around that as the driver, hearing about what's possible in terms of accuracy, sustainability around the AI powered
Yeah.
robots. I mean, this is definitely where the world's going, and you guys are at the forefront of it.
Yeah. Yeah, look, I mean, it's an interesting time. It's no one's starving to death in the United States. Nobody, right? Food scarcity is less of a problem now. The quality of what we're eating and our health is the real issue. And so that's really what you're seeing. Why does Greenfield resonate with people? Well, they're not worried about, do I have enough calories anymore? They're worried about the quality of what you're eating. Am I creating risk, right? Some people can smoke all their years and never get cancer, or some can be unlucky, like my dad, get exposed to the wrong herbicide at the wrong time and get Parkinson's. And so these are the things that I think are starting to appeal to human beings right now, and at least in a developed country like we're at. And I think other countries coming up really fast, from my understanding, is it's not about quantity, it's about quality on almost everything.
I couldn't agree with you more. My wife's always shown me different studies about the food and the oils and all the different things we were
Yeah.
taught
Seed oils.
when we were younger. As a kid, like this is what you cook with.
You're
This is
like, what can
good.
I eat? What's safe to eat?
I couldn't actually answer that question because I know some people would disagree with me. It's hard to believe. It's hard to figure out what to believe these days. But again, things we were brought up like, hey, this is good. Make sure you get enough of that. Now we completely avoid.
Yeah, it's crazy because look, 25, 30 years, when I was 25 years old, it'd been 26 years, let's call it. I ran myself down, I wasn't eating right, all this kind of stuff. And that's when I first got into this. And that's when I lived in LA, still had a startup, well funded by Sony, all this stuff. And ran myself into the ground health wise with how I ate. And that's when sort of the research began. And it's interesting for me to watch all these people talk about seed oils and what oil's real and all this stuff. I've known this stuff forever, and I talk to people, and then you realize you're that guy at the party, so you just stop talking. But it's, but now everyone wants to talk to me about like it's an amazing discovery. And I'm like, oh my God, we've known this a long time. But even things like olive oil, right? Like, can you try, what is olive oil? Is it real? Is it not? Well, I've known it for a long time. So people are like, why you buy such expensive olive oil? I'm like, because it's olive oil. And so, and it just goes on and on, and things that you say to people like, hey, do you know margarine's gray? What? Yeah. No, would you put that on your toast if you knew it was gray, right? And so these things have been going on and on and on, and it's really interesting. And I think we're seeing that in so many things, and that's why things are in such upheaval. We're kind of learning the truth about a lot of things, but we're all drinking from a fire hose in every direction. And so it's just a distracted universe right now because we're kind of realizing all these things we thought we knew we don't. And
Yes.
so we're all challenging a lot of things right now, and food's one of those. And so, and the interesting thing too, I feel bad for farmers because it's like sometimes you see that they're like, oh, farmers are the problem. The farmers are not the problem. Farmers want to do the right thing. You don't farm because of trying to get wealthy, unless you're
Mm.
crazy. You wealthy, you do it because it's a way of life and it's something you believe in, and you're trying to do the right thing. But the margins are tight and all these types of things, and a lot of things are stacked against you and random, like the weather. And so, um, people come out against farmers and they get all crazy about it. And I'm like, no, yeah, we're getting better, but I've never met a farmer yet who wasn't like, okay, let me think about that, see if we can get better. You know, everyone.
Closed loop. You're getting the actual information. Like you
Yeah,
said, we're drinking from fire hoses in every direction. Hard to
yeah,
tell which ones are real. The more times we hear the same information from the more sources, human condition, we believe it, but now it's coming from everywhere and it sounds plausible, but it's hard to
yeah.
tell what's going on. There's some things that are easier to agree with: accuracy, precision, chemicals, doing this in a way that's
Hmm.
better for us in each of those categories makes perfect sense. But if I have to tell someone, what to eat or where exactly to get their olive oil from, because I've heard different things from different olive oil tastings as well too. I have good olive oil. We cook with it.
Olive oil
Good olive
tastings.
oil.
Oh my gosh. We don't have those in Kansas that I'm aware of.
I've always been invited. I never just sat
Oh,
around on a
yeah.
Saturday.
Wow.
But
Actually, I would enjoy that.
it's a
But
good it's a good
yeah,
time. There is a line though where it's too much, but
yeah,
it is a good time. Um, you know,
yeah.
with with that said, and I imagine you get some fun text messages and calls from friends asking you about different
Mm,
products and what they should and shouldn't
mm.
have. You saw
All the
this.
time.
I bet. I mean, I get asked just eating out with friends. Oh, do you eat this? Do you do that? I imagine it's
Yeah,
endless for you. You get a strong audience response, not just from the
yeah.
farmers. You've seen it from the retail investors. But
Mm.
what first made you choose to do a regulation crowdfunding campaign? You guys have capital partners. I'm sure you have different investor conversations offline. What did you look at as the benefits to using the crowd versus just going after more VC or traditional type of funding?
Yeah, I think that since we started the company, I wanted to do crowdfunding right away, but we also had a sense that let's make sure we have a product that's working before we go down that path, or we know it's about to break through. And so we couldn't take crowdfunding seriously for a while because I just didn't want to go out there and then it just flails around. Because what we're doing is a lot harder than some of the things you see in crowdfunding. No offense to them, but what we're doing is a very, very hard
Yeah.
problem to solve. And so, I mean, it's not, SpaceX landing a missile hard, but it's pretty darn hard. And so, because of the variables. So we held off for a while and we went angels, friends, family, people we found, did some hard things that way, accredited, all accredited. And that got us into this position. And you can kind of see, actually, as it turns out, this picture, you can kind of see the wave, right? And
Mhm.
so these yellow bots started really happening in, I think, late 2023. And so here we are, not all these yellow bots, but this kind of design. And you could see actually, I'll just move over. You could see the kind of the difference in if you're watching. And um, so then we're like, okay, let's do this. Well, everyone eats food. Everyone cares about this. Everyone. And so for a consumer of food, there is no confusion about the return. The return is on their health. The return is on the environment that's around them, right? For a venture capitalist, for private equity, for these guys, the return's the return. They don't, the externalities, they might talk about it. They might parade around and say it's a big deal. Maybe that's a little bit their focal point. But at the end of the day, they're holding themselves to an absolute return. And everything's filtered through that lens. If I'm someone looking at Greenfield or something like that to invest in that affects me personally, I'm looking through the lens of, yes, I want to do well with the investment, sure, but I'm not trying to make a 20x return in 5 years. I'm not trying. You don't invest in something like Greenfield through that lens. You invest through it. Yes, I want it to do well. I can see this in the future, but also it's really important to me what we do around the planet, my health, my kids' health, and that kind of stuff. And that to me is crowdfunding. And that we think over time is fundamental to who we are. And the thing farmers hear me say all the time is we care about two types of people. One, consumers that eat food, it's everybody. And two, farmers, everyone else that don't care. That's the path we're on. How do we do that? And so crowdfunding to me is a natural for something like this. We're not making some, crazy science-based thing that don't barely anyone can understand. And so crowdfunding for us is fundamental to who we are, and we love it. So
People and farmers. People eat, farmers you're working with, they understand these benefits, the technology, and now they could come on board as shareholders alongside of you.
and
Yes.
you mind? Let me add to that, Jason.
Yeah.
So the great thing here is the problem I described before. If we get enough scale going here, where consumers are over here and farmers are here, and they're kind of sometimes pointing at each other. I'm hoping over time we can help connect those things and using the bots to create transparency and for people to understand that this can be done this way. The costs now are okay to do this. And so consumers and farmers stop pointing at each other. And this is going to take time. But that to me is the long game here for us.
Yeah. Let's dispel rumors,
Yeah.
conspiracy theories. Let's have the farmers and people more connected and through the
Yep.
data, not just narrative. And when I've polled investors, when I've talked to people who invest in Reg CF campaigns, they want to be along for the ride. They want to be part of your growth. Potentially, I should say, just for compliance purposes, they want to be along with the founder, with the team, as you're having your next breakthroughs, your next innovations with the
Yep.
product. As a consumer, as an individual investor, you ask yourself, hey, what products do I care about? What do I want to put time into? Where can I have an impact? These are, I want people to eat better. I want farmers to put out
Yeah.
chemical-free food. But how can I do anything about that? Investing into a company like Greenfield Robotics, I think, is an approach towards it where you get that fulfillment. You feel like you're part of the Greenfield Robotics team. So all the great things you guys are working on, as an extension, they are as well.
Yep. And listen, you can understand, as a investor, you have to know it's risky, right? The earlier
Oh yeah.
stage, risky, and people make that decision. And we love seeing those small investments, because I'm like, it's okay.
Yes.
I mean, we're doing everything we can, and I'm sure those people realize, like, okay, there's a chance I will never see this again, and but there's a chance they will. And so I think that's what's unique about crowdfunding. Whereas with large accredited investments, the bet is so big that the performance expectations are so high that there's a huge track record of things killing companies, both private equity and venture capital, because the pressure is so extreme to return such a high return so quickly. And everyone wants return, of course. But crowdfunding, again, I think people invest for different motives in a lot of instances.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I just see it as such a great thing for all sides of the table, for
Yep.
founders, uh, democratized access to capital to investors, same thing for investors and to deal flow of growth stage companies. So that's why I'm involved in the space. And so many companies either don't get funded outside, more through more traditional approaches, VC, angel, or like you're
Yep.
saying, they get the wrong money and ends up hurting them in the
Yep.
long run. I see this as so much more of a sustainable thing.
Yeah. Yep.
So I want to ask you a few questions, package some actionable insights for the audience if they are running an equity crowdfund campaign. Or maybe it's just on the growth side of things, if they're launching a company, growing their company. I look at growth as a series of tests, refinement, but the beginning with tests. What would you recommend for them to test out?
Well, you need to understand what type of person's going to want to do this. you
Mm.
know, and for us, I've known this, I've been developing this for 15, 16 years, standing in grocery store aisles and that. So I probably have more understanding what type of person is concerned about this and who's not, right? And so if you need to know if your story is going to resonate with a particular audience or not. And I think that makes it a little bit easier. And so we knew our story should resonate. We didn't know for sure it was going to work, but we thought people do care about this because I hear it all the time. And so I don't know how I quantify that for you, but you know, I think you know when you got it, and so that helps a lot. You know, friends, family, people you know, um, just is there a general public interest in what you're doing? Now, you may disagree with it, but that would be sort of my step one in my mind.
Target audience, really understanding them.
Yep.
As a marketer, you're then able to figure out the right touch points, the right messaging, so you can get awareness, so you can do the follow up. People forget, you want to be able to bring them back, and with exciting updates, you want to share in the momentum with them.
Yep.
Makes perfect sense. What about when you understand that target audience? You know who they are, whether they're a prospective investor, whether they're a prospective customer, client, and it's not working. Slows down, not seeing the results you're looking for at all, maybe just plateaus for a week, a month, whatever it may be, slight obstacle. But how do you optimize? You've been effective at this. You've been able to make appropriate adjustments and manage things to a point of effectiveness. What recommendations would you have for anyone who's tuned in?
Yeah, I'll tell you. You know, we have people have been helping me out on this a lot, and so I don't have every detail, but I'll say this. One of the things that I thought we did very well in the first one is our head of marketing, then Mark Levine, is just a extremely personable, great human being. And so a lot of times we had him talking to the investors, right? So like you were talking about ground truthing, talk to them, they had questions, and it was a lot of time. I used to joke about the Mark Levine honorary call center. And so so he talked to a lot of folks, you know, and he's like us, right? He has the same way of thinking about life and what's important. And so we put him, you know, he was willing to do this, thankfully, because the guy used to have a huge job. You know, he ran the Food Network. Like he decided what television shows are made and not for years. And so an old friend, and so we had him do that, and I think that helped a lot. Like he would have conversations with folks, and we'd have a quick discussion, and so you could tune the messaging. I think the other thing is just kind of seeing the comments now on your ads when you're running ads, right? And you're kind of looking at that and starting to go, are we targeting the right audience with this? Now, I think you know this. It seems like no matter what ad you're running, people want to talk politics on the ad. It's just crazy to watch. I'm just like, what does this got to do with anything we're doing, you know? But it just
Polarizing.
is what it
Yeah.
is. Yeah, I mean, it's social media, and so today politics seems to be. By the way, can I side note that no one wanted to talk about politics 25 years ago? You remember that?
Yeah, I do.
You
Uh,
never brought up politics. I was the guy who wanted to, and now I'm like, can we not talk about it? And so, but no, I think that I'm seeing kind of what's happening real time with comments and the way people are thinking about it and answering it. Their concerns is important and better understanding kind of where people are coming from. And um, what we learned in a few things is this early on, people didn't, you know, we realized like what people didn't understand about what we were doing. Like people are making assumptions. Well, you're using lasers, or what are you guys doing? You're tilling the ground. Like, no, that's exactly what we're not doing. And so you have to go. You realize like, oh my God, we're not explaining this in a way that makes sense, right? To someone who maybe doesn't live in this world. So that also we had to make adjustments as we went. Your messaging and helping them understand what is this, you know?
but you do a good job at it. I mean, you broke down what tilling is here. You know, it's easy to talk about
Like
something
it,
you're professional about and forget, oh, they may not understand an acronym or this or that. Breaking it down to as few words as possible, each word serving a strong purpose,
yeah.
making it so that your target audience can not only absorb it, understand it, not feel like it's going over their head, but then repeat it. One of the things I love about crowdfunding, I think the farming community industry as well too, the peer-to-peer marketing. You want people to be talking about you. They're not going to do that if they stumble over some of the words or feel like they don't exactly know what they're talking about or can't answer the questions from there. So making sure the messaging gets through, continuing to edit that, uh, you know, humbly
Yeah,
until it
that
works.
And look, and that has been such a learning curve for me over honestly, like I was such an egghead the first 13 years of my career and, living in the future and just talking past people all the time and not even knowing I was doing it. And like even yesterday, I was out in the field with about 40 farmers, right? And I just presented like all these concepts and stuff, right? Several farmers said to me, like, well, what are you going to do about this? And I'm thinking, I just presented that. That's not their fault. That's me. That's me, right? That's me. I'm not explaining it and I'm not doing it right. And so I think the older I've gotten, people are always like, well, people are dumb. They don't get it. You've heard people, oh, people are
Oh,
so
yeah.
stupid in that. No, no, it's not. It's on us that are communicating to help them understand it. And I didn't get that for a long time, young, arrogant, stupid, and about the whole thing. And now it's like, I'm still stupid in some ways, but definitely starting to realize my own issues with talking past you on something you don't understand. I think the entire tech industry, by the way, does this.
Yeah.
um, you know it's just like you go into a store, a computer, most people don't do this anymore, but go look on Amazon. What's it telling you? Well, this is a processor, blah, 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 blah. What does that mean? You know what I mean? And they're still doing it. And you got to have someone translate for you, apparently. Um, so
I
it's
do it
it's
as
crazy.
well. I
Yeah.
it happens to me, and when I'm presenting, did a webinar yesterday, was on a round table the day before, and I'll hear people ask questions about what I spoke about, or even just in day-to-day conversations. And like you, I'm like, okay, I need to change something up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like,
Yeah,
yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it's an effort to reduce, meaning there's a method I subscribe to, the 313 method. I don't apply this to everything, but I try.
Okay.
Where if you could break something down to 3 sentences,
Mm,
it's going to be a lot easier for the other
interesting.
side to digest. If you can then break it down to 1 sentence, if you can then break it down to 3 words, which is a process, people can remember 3 things. They can remember 3 words. So if I try to throw 10 at them, okay, should they be taking a list? I mean, they just check out in some cases, or they're thinking about it, so they're not processing the next piece of information I find. Where if I could keep referencing the same 3 words, I can have a whole storyline behind each one, but they're able to connect it back. Not great on it. Still a work in process, but it's something I strive for in messaging, especially if I
Yeah.
only have 3 fields. Uh, I've been effective at it. I could tell you from ad results and different performance results and being able to say, but I find you could always be better on a campaign. It's constant work towards it. But once you've been able to refine it, you guys have hit scale. You hit scale on your last Reg CF campaign, and in a very short window of time, may I add, you've hit scale on how you've been able to bring these products to life. I can't tell you how many startups, how many founders I meet with that talk about things that never get created. How have you guys been able to scale successfully? Any tips, any examples?
Well, there's no substitute for doing the hard things. And what I mean is nose to the grindstone, a lot of details. Details are the critical to any success in anything, anyone I've done or any of the folks who work with me. And we've all built companies before, and we've all built new products led to companies. Let's put it that way. And so I think that it's hard. It is staying laser focused and never forgetting what you're doing now. In our case, what we're doing is so extremely difficult that having a team of guys and guys, and we're all guys, I guess, at this point, that is deeply experienced in other technologies, things that used to be hard, internet, communication systems, software, applications, vision, machine vision, stuff like that. Or people that, mechanical have built vehicles, have built, when I say vehicle, it could be an off-road vehicle, it could be in a field, it could be a lawnmower, whatever. You bring that together with that experience and you tend to avoid some of the mess that other folks have. And then the last thing, there's always this 80-20, and who knows, it's just a convenient number. Nobody really knows, but it's real simple to me. What I see a lot is people get things to 80%. And we see this a lot at universities, right? Because they might go develop something great, but they get it to 80%. Why they get to 80%? Well, it's not because the person running the program doesn't know what they're doing. It's because they had people for a semester, maybe 2 years, then they're gone. Well, that 20% is actually 80%, right? In something like what we're doing, right? We had robots running in fields year 2 as a fleet. Took us another 4 years to get them to do it really well. And so it's really dogged determination on something like this. It's something that has a lot of complexity you're trying to address. You're not just building a product, you're also affecting the way farms operate over time. And so I've never dealt with something like this. We're breaking a lot of rules, but you're just asking me, how do you succeed? You just don't give the hell up, and it's all encompassing. And that is it. I mean, that's it. You may still fail, and you'll know when it's time to quit. I've quit things. You'll know, like, that wasn't a good idea. Let's not do that when I was younger, But most of the time, it is just a matter of never quitting and having that stamina. And that's that. And you've got to be surrounded with people eventually that have that same stamina with you. And we have been very fortunate here. I'm going to add one other thing here.
Please.
You live on the West Coast, major metro.
Yep.
I used to live in major metro on the West Coast. And that's good. But I'm telling you, with Greenfield, what we've done, I would have never survived there, because here's the other thing. If it's going to take a long time, and you suspect it will, our burn rate here in Kansas is almost nothing. It's really cheap to live here. Greenfield will never made it in California. Not the way it's been funded in that, and even right now.
Yep.
It's best to be here. And so not with, it takes a lot to live in West Coast.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't take so much here. And it's actually been critical. And I drive 2 miles to my farm, and guys come in, and, we can go out at 9:00 at night and try something very easily. There's no traffic jam. So that's an interesting one for this that we thought about, all of us together, because most of us have lived in those major metros, and it's an interesting one for this. So get your personal burn rate down, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think about that quite a bit in terms of positioning. That's what I'm really hearing out of this is positioning, including geolocation, burn rate. Don't give up. Don't give up. Don't give up. That determination, that grit, knowing, hey, we're doing this one way or the other. We're getting product to market in 2 years. We're gonna have to, make some adjustments. Maybe it's another 4, but products in market. I'm able to talk about it all the way through and bring in the right team. You guys are expert led. Being able to have people who have taken things to the finish line before, be able to have team members who can, build from the ground up, incorporating technologies that don't even exist yet. That's what made this all succeed for you.
And having like-minded people with me, Stephen Gentner, my co-founder, is just relentless. He's easy going, great, very personable, great guy, great technologist. I mean, the best, frankly, I've ever worked with. And, but he's relentless, man. He's relentless. And Nunden's the same. And it's just, Royce is the same, just relentless. And just this total focus on this and the willingness to sacrifice. Now, look, I don't think all startups need to be as extreme as this one. They shouldn't. But it's this one, I feel like it's kind of, we've all worked up to this like insane challenge that we're doing. So,
well, it shows, and not just by my perspective, but by the 700 plus people who've invested in you guys, by the publishers who've talked about you, by the farmers, by the clients. Applaud what you guys are doing there at Greenfield Robotics, and thankful that we had the time to chat today. If anyone's tuned in and wants to get in contact, wants to learn more, wants to see the offering page, where should they go to learn more? And you've already gave us so many great pieces of advice here, but any final statements you wanna wrap with here today?
Yeah, I think they can go to invest.greenfieldrobotics.com. I think that's the right URL. I'm actually not sure.
Yes.
A little woefully unprepared for that one, which I shouldn't have been. But I think that, listen, I think crowdfunding just in general, people are looking into it. Definitely take the time to research it and think through it. It is something to do. And I would say find someone who knows what they're doing like you, and get going on that, because there is a lot to think through and there's a lot to understand. And look, I had a 15-year background in digital marketing. At one point, I think I was one of the best in the world at it. And, you look at that and you go, and then we got back into it now, and I'm like, we need some more help. So I think that's really the key is what a great world we're transitioning into. It feels a little crazy on every front right now, but I'm starting to believe that, we're going to come through this in 10 years, kind of where everyone's acting a little crazy right now. I think we all know that. And we're going to end up with something quite a bit different than we've seen, Jason, you and I growing up, but it will be better. And
Mhm.
it's going to solve some problems that we obviously have. And I think crowdfunding is a huge way for people to take ownership of the system again. And so I really, really love it. And I'm glad I've met you along the way. And this is great. Thanks for having me on this, by the way.
Pleasure's been all mine, Clint. Really enjoyed the discussion today. Took 2 pages of notes myself. Already, knew about the company and yourself and the offering, but hearing more about the backstory, I can't tell you how much we appreciate it. I'm gonna begin this out to our fans, to our audience. Want to thank you guys. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time, and thanks again, Clint.